welcome back to the channel, man. So today we are going to be doing the most exciting mini bike build that I have ever done. Well, at least for me. Right here in this box, we have a GMB100 frame. This is from FRP. I have this MXR 420E. This is a 15 horsepower, 420cc engine with an electric start. This is exactly what it is I ordered this engine for, is to go on this tiny little mini bike. All right, so this roller has pretty much got most of our bases covered, man. It doesn't just come with the standard cable brake. It's already upgraded to a hydraulic brake. You have your disconnect up here on the handlebar. You have the wiring run down for it, so you have your wiring right here for your disconnect. Already came with a twist throttle, and it also comes with the mounting plate, so that right now it is set up for a small engine, like that one over there. Or this mounting plate bolts up to where the small engine goes, and then you can bolt up things like a Predator 212 or the 224, things like that. But unfortunately, this mounting plate is not going to be big enough to accommodate the big block that we are wanting to put on this bike. So if you look at the sheer size of this engine in comparison to this little hole that we have to put it in right there, yeah, this is gonna be pretty freaking tight in there, man. One way or another, dude, we're gonna make this work, because I want more than anything to have a tiny little big block bike. I just had to start this thing up one last time before I tear it apart. All right, one more time. From here up, that is all gas tank. The exhaust is right here, and it comes up into this ginormous box, in which is hot. And then of course the factory air box is all the way up here, the factory carburetor, all of that. So all of that is gonna have to come off, and it's not gonna be able to go back on. Okay, I'm just kidding. All right, there's the factory exhaust. And a little test fit because of my excitement. Oh. Yeah, buddy, look at that. Now that has definitely shrunken down in size. So this looks like something that, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still a pretty big engine in comparison to what normally you would put on this bike. So it's probably still gonna be pretty tight, but that is a lot smaller. We're also gonna need to remove these studs right here. That's for the factory carburetor setup. What the hell? All right. When all else fails, bust out the bike, baby. Shit. Bang bang, just like that. Alright, just for reference, this is all the stuff that we pulled off of the engine. It's actually quite a bit, man. We're not going to be using any of this. So now, let's get the bike up here and see how well that guy is gonna fit in there. All right, test fit number one. Oh, wow, bro. You can't even put it in the hole. So I'm not gonna lie, man, I have been eager to do this build for some time now. I have actually had this frame sitting for a minute. As you guys know, the engine came in a while ago, but I was waiting for all the parts that I need to actually make this work, you know, like the carburetor and the clutch and like all that kind of stuff. I was waiting for all these parts to come in. So I have been dying to get to this point right here, just with all the stuff taken off the engine and just simply trying to set the square peg into the round hole and see what I'm gonna have to do to make it work. So I am committed to getting that engine on this frame, dude. I mean, I've had some people recommend to me that I should be putting the big block on the big bike, on the big old Coleman, because there is a lot more room over there. But dude, where's the fun in that, man? Like, challenge accepted. I wanna see what it's gonna take to get this big block on this tiny little frame. Moving forward with clearancing, I'm gonna go ahead and remove the fender because that's definitely gonna be in our way. I kind of need to remove the frame because the frame is definitely in our way. The starter box right here, I'm gonna go ahead and remove this so it's out of our way. I don't know if this is gonna give us any more space, but I also have it in the back of my mind that if I have to, I could cut these fuel tank mounts off because I don't need those. But I don't think I'm having space issues this direction. It's more this direction. So you unbolt this thing and pull it away. As you can see, it's connected with nothing but wiring. So we can disconnect the wires, and anywhere we want to place this thing, if we don't end up running it in the factory spot, it's as simple as just extending wires. I mean, it is in there. It's definitely gonna take a little bit more figuring out than just setting it right there. Wow, dude. I mean, it's in there though. Look at this. Look at the clearance from the valve cover to the wheel, dude. Okay. I mean, it's an option to extend the bike, right? That will definitely give us a little bit more clearance from wheel to engine. But you know what, dude? If there's clearance, then there's clearance, man. What can you do? But one thing I will say is it looks like carburetor is going to have some issues because that's kind of lining up with the frame. And then you come, oh my God, yeah. You come over here to the exhaust. Yeah, that's kind of lining up with the frame also. So I can, but you see, I'm not all the way forward. I don't know, let me mess with it. Because I'm thinking, I want to see how much more forward it will slide, but at the same time, like as the frame comes up, you can go further that way. So I'm kind of thinking if we have to, kind of get the engine up a little bit in the frame, move it forward, and even if we have a slight tilt in it, you know, that wouldn't be the end of the world. But oh, it's the stud on the exhaust over there, because it's literally, is that what's hitting? Is there something that's hitting? Oh, it's the damn rivet for the VIN plate. Yeah, that's about as far forward as I can go without spacing the engine up at all. Still not quite enough room for the exhaust. I'm gonna try to set the front of the engine actually on that pipe. Oh, there we go. That right there is where we get our room for the exhaust. Holy crap, dude. Yeah, that's gonna have to be all the way forward. Let me see if I can get the engine to stay here. Stay. All right, so the carburetor is still gonna be a little weird, right? But if I have to, I can use some kind of like 90-degree intake tube to come out this way or something. I think we could figure out the carburetor, even if it came out this way and the carburetor is more kind of sitting right here. But there is enough room for the exhaust. That right there is gonna be perfect. So as you can see, that is with the engine sitting forward on top of this tube right here. I think that is definitely what it is that we're gonna have to do, is something like that for sure. So I found the most heavy duty clutch that I can find with a 1-inch diameter. This clutch is supposed to be good for up to a 10 horsepower engine. Of course, this is a 15 horsepower engine. I wouldn't doubt that. I don't know, man. I've seen people talk about online that they've had good luck with just cheap Amazon $20 ones, you know, and I mean they have to replace it every so often, of course, but I already know that I'm not going to have the room for a torque converter. We might cross that path later in the future, but anyhow, slide the clutch on. You see where the chain is going to be, bro. Sprocket on the clutch is going to have to line up with the sprocket on the wheel right here. So yeah, that is right there, and currently we are way out here. So the engine needs to actually go that way, probably about, I want to say 4 inches, 4 or 5 inches, 6, 7, I don't know. Alright, for the time being, I am removing the brake caliper, the brake line, throttle cable, handlebars, all of this extra stuff that's in my way. Don't worry about all that later. Because This is gonna require some extensive fabrication. So I picked up a 52 sprocket. This is going to fit our 420 chain. I'm gonna get this thing popped onto the wheel really quick because now I need to kind of figure out exactly where the engine needs to sit in order for our chain to line up with the clutch, of course. Anyhow, what I'm thinking I might end up doing is, you see all this area right here that has the set screws in it? We don't need the set screws because this is keyed for the 1/4 inch key. I'm kind of thinking about grinding that down just until it's flush with that spot on the end of the hole, so we still have that much girth sticking out for our snap ring right there. I don't want to weaken that, but that would at least give us, you know, a 1/4 of an inch or so in, and that would be a 1/4 of an inch that I don't have to continue moving the engine in that direction, you know. All right, now with the sprocket on, I can see that the engine is definitely gonna have to go further right. But I'm gonna try, like I said, to take some material away from this clutch really quick first. All right, well, there's the setup, man. I got a piece of angle iron clamped onto the fence of my saw. Then I have the clutch clamped to that, and hopefully this works out, dude. Should cut just enough off. Hopefully I don't mess this damn thing up, or else my hard to find clutch is gonna get warrantied out. Alright, I gave myself some reference marks here. I need the plate to come up above this bar, basically. That's where the engine was sitting. And from right here, I need the plate to sit 1 inch from the top of the frame. This needs to sit at 1 inch. And it's got to come all the way out here to be able to bolt up the big block. So it's pretty obvious that this engine plate's not going to work. Instead of trying to make spacers or add to this, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out completely so we can redo it. Alright, got this thing cut out. I went ahead and I cleaned off all the weld off of both ends. And I cleaned up the pipe there. Only place I didn't clean up the welds is underneath there because I kind of have to flip the bike to get to it, but I'll do that some other day, huh? Anyhow, this originally, so this sat right on top, right there. And then this butted up to the bottom over here. So that's how it was sitting. This side with this little lip was on the front, and it was butted up to there, and then that just sat on top of the pipe. So popping this thing out, I'm gonna try this right now. It would be crazy if this actually works. Literally just turning the plate, right? Turn it around like this to where the side that has this bend in it is sitting on top of this pipe, and then instead of this side being on the bottom, put it on the top. And where it was over here centered in the frame, just simply moving it further over this direction because of how far over the engine sits. Dude, it literally looks like if I just welded that in, that would basically work. The only problem I'm going to run into is where the bolts in the front of the engine go through is kind of lining up with this pipe. I need to figure that out. I don't know, but I want to test it. I want to try it and see if that right there is actually going to sit properly. Brother! Whoa, Gina! Don't do that! Don't do that! Baby, come back to me! Alright, I got these cut out of our way, and I added a chromoly tube onto the front right here. And I know this isn't sticking out very far, but I have a plan for that later. But now the motor plate, that's basically where it needs to sit. I just needed to extend further up here, so I cut myself a little extension. So our little extension will actually sit right there. So I'm gonna weld this to the plate, and then I'll grind it smooth right there. And then, yeah, we'll be able to weld the motor plate right there on that little spot in the frame. And then we'll be able to tack it right here on the front, and then flip it over, and I'll be able to weld the living hell out of it on the other side where you can't see it. And then, yeah, weld it on the back right here, and we'll be golden. Golden, not brass, not bronze, not the silver, but the gold. Actually, maybe even the platinum. Okay, okay, platinum is after paint, my friend. After the paint. Extension complete. So I did bevel the edge on both of these pieces, so there's a nice crater inside of there for me to fill in. And then I came back and I just ground the weld down flat so that we don't have anything making the engine sit wonky. And then of course on the back side, I was able to just leave my big old caterpillar there. Look at that. Doink! Just like that, right into place. So now we'll be able to weld it all the way across there. I don't think I'll have to, but I'll probably put a weld right there on the frame, just so that avoid it from doing like developing a rattle, you know what I mean? But then yeah, we have this whole welding point right here, and then of course underneath, and that thing's gonna be good and strong. But we better try the engine, make sure again that's gonna work. So ran down to the hardware store, picked up some nuts and bolts and whatnot that we need. It is a new day and time to get it started off right. Anyhow, I put the camera up last night and just focused on getting this figured out, because where I originally was gonna place the engine, like it was going to work, but the problem is where the carburetor bolts up was lining up directly with the frame. So I completely reconfigured the whole entire thing. Instead of the motor plate being all the way up here, now I've scooted it all the way back. This thing is basically done. There's gonna be a lot of cleanup that I have to do before paint. And there's some areas I need to finish, like this needs to be cut at an angle. And I'm gonna plate this in some more and whatnot, but I'll worry about that later. For now, I just wanna get everything fitted and make sure that it's gonna work. So we have our foot peg pole welded on, got our motor plate done. It's reinforced. I had to add a pole in here. I had to add another piece back here to reinforce this. It's lifted up and it sits at a slant. So now, now that I've got bolts to actually bolt the engine in, I'm gonna go ahead and set it in there so you guys can see how this thing fits now. So you gotta put the head in between the frame first, and then put the engine in. It's all the way back, look at that. Bro, the head is all the way back here. With the engine scooted back, now I have plenty enough room to go ahead and mount our manifold, and then our carburetor will go on from there. And here's our little cheapy Amazon exhaust pipe, in which originally I was worried this thing was gonna stick way out of the frame and just kind of look goofy. But look at this now, dude. This is pretty cool. It's gonna bolt up right there, and look how clean that is, dude. Nice and flush with the frame. Got plenty enough space. Perfect amount of space in between it. I don't know, that thing literally worked out so perfect. So anyhow, now with the engine placement figured out and the bolt hole, like that's basically ready. So now we are ready. Just go ahead and assemble this thing, man. I have a bunch of parts now over here in the corner. Just gotta put everything together and see how everything works. I wanna get this thing, I want to get everything working and take it for the first ride and all that before I tear it back down and make it look nice and paint it and everything, of course, so that just in case I need to cut or weld or change something, you know. Holy crap, man, starting to look like a bike again. So what I'm going to do with these foot pegs is I've actually got a set an old set of bicycle pegs that I'm just going to go ahead and bolt on here like so. What's really cool about these pegs is that it's set in like that, and that inside diameter literally fits over this pipe like perfect. So I don't have to worry about them moving around. So what I did is I got a long piece of all thread. So I'm gonna have to cut this down, of course. I'm gonna run all thread all the way through, and then this is gonna screw onto the peg. So that will screw on there and then go all the way through, and then on the other side over here, I'll cut this down, leave a little bit sticking out, you know, then screw the other peg on. And then I also got washers and those nylon locking nuts to put on the inside so that I don't have to worry about them coming loose. So basically jam it on there. So then this thing will have a piece of all thread going from peg to peg. And then yeah, dude, I think that's gonna look pretty sick. Obviously we gotta clean them up and paint them like we gotta do to the rest of the frame. But yeah, that's gonna be dope, man. And that's gonna extend it out enough to where I should put it in the other way. Just so we can get the visual. Extend it out enough to where my leg, where my foot can sit right here, even though the engine sticks out so far. Plus it's gonna help quite a bit now that we've actually moved the engine all the way back. So yeah, I need to get that knocked out. I gotta get these studs pulled out of the head for the exhaust. The exhaust muffler little pipe came with bolts because these are too long. I'm gonna get those pulled out because then the muffler will just bolt on. And then yeah, we gotta make a chain, get the handlebars on, run the line down for the brake caliper and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, let's just stop talking about it and be about it. See, with the peg screwed on there, now I've also got a washer and one of the nylon locking nuts to put on the inside in there also to jam it so that they can't come loose. That's gonna be so fucking perfect, dude. And if it blows up right there, my leg ain't right next to it, you know? Baby, come back. All right, the bike is nearing completion where we're gonna be able to start this. Well, you know what? I shouldn't even say that. I should not say that because there's still wiring that's gotta be done and whatnot, but let's not even think about that. Matter of fact, I need to put that up here on the table. So, I gotta figure out exactly how I'm gonna be doing this on the handlebars. Of course, I wanna make something that's a lot smaller than this. Actually, I guess I need to open this up and see what's all going on back inside of there. Anyhow, we do have the wiring to do. But, moving on to the fun stuff, here's all the bolt-on parts that we need to put on this thing. So in the bag over here, I have the intake manifold. So this is the adapter. It's going to bolt to the head, and then that's going to allow us to bolt on our slide carburetor. This is a Nibby. This is a PWK 34 millimeter carburetor. I looked up what size carburetor is recommended to run on a 420, and this is what it says. So yeah, we got a Nibby slide carburetor. With that, I also got an upgraded handle. Twist throttle. This is the billet style, the same thing that I have on my Coleman bike. So it's got the billet twist throttle, and it's got some JFG Racing handle grips, and then of course our throttle cable and our exhaust pipe. You guys have already seen this. And then this is what it is from Evil Energy that I'm going to utilize as a fuel tank. This is a coolant overflow tank for an automotive coolant overflow tank, basically. I'm gonna use this. I've already had it out messing with it, that's why. So I need to get another block off for up here, but it does have, this was a drain that it has on the bottom. So what I'm gonna do is end up running the line for my fuel off of that. These are probably too big of a fuel line. I don't know, I gotta figure it out. But the idea is to use this as my fuel tank. This is supposed to be a relatively budget build here. So most fuel tanks that actually fit on the bike are upwards of $200, $250. A lot of the universal ones are about the same. So this thing right here cost me like $23 on Amazon. And I figured I could just make some brackets and mount it right here. That'll be above the carburetor enough, hopefully. If not, I don't know, I might have to put one of those vacuum pumps on it or something for the fuel. But anyhow, or maybe I can mount it up on the handlebars, be up higher. And that'd look goofy though. Either way, we're gonna figure that out. And of course, this thing has electric start, hence all the wiring over here. I was gonna do a battery box and all that, but then you need to figure out charging. So I decided I'm just gonna do the exact same thing that I did on my Coleman bike and just run this power adapter so that you can use the DeWalt 20 volt batteries. And then, yeah, dude, I always have a DeWalt 20 volt battery. This right here will actually convert it down. So it takes 17 to 55 volts input, and then the output is 12 volts. So this will convert our 20 volt DeWalt battery to 12 volt so that it's given the proper voltage to the starter on this thing. And then of course we can add lights and stuff in the future as well. It's going to be a lot more taxing on a DeWalt battery, but you can run any size DeWalt battery on here you want, man. Big 10 amp hour and you're straight. Anyhow, that's everything that I have to bolt on. So I'm just going to get to it and get all this stuff slapped on here. Then we'll figure out what we need to do to make it all work and get the first start on this. So this manifold actually has a fitting right here that you can run a pulse fuel pump off of if I need to run a pulse pump. So I'll keep that in mind in case we do end up needing to do something like that. But for now, I'm just gonna go ahead and use the plug that it came with and just block that off. I'm also not going to need this disconnect switch because, yeah, this engine takes a key. Alright, I fabbed up some little brackets really quick for actually bolting this gas tank on, well, the coolant reservoir onto the bike that we're going to be using as a gas tank. This thing's actually going to be mounting right here. So I made some little tabs that we can weld into place, and then we'll be able to bolt this thing on and off. Alright, got our brackets welded on here for the gas tank. I just want to give you guys a really quick disclaimer. Whenever it comes to this kind of stuff, like I want to cut these off because they're kind of long, and then I want to round the edges and make it look a lot cleaner. Of course, we're going to end up painting this bike. We're not going to do it in this video. So just to let you guys know, if you see that I'm leaving things a little rough around the edges, that's on purpose, because my goal is for this thing is to get it all complete and running, driving, make sure everything's gonna work. And then of course we'll tear this thing down and we'll go around, you know, do stuff like that. Cut that off, round it, make everything look nice, and get it ready for paint and get it sprayed. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. And before I move forward with throwing the forks back on, putting the tank on and all that, I have kind of learned now since I've had to completely disassemble the whole front end once again, that I need to take it easy with the assembly and figure out where some things are going to go. So we have a switch, well, the key that we need to put on here somewhere. We also need to figure out where to mount this. This is what is going to power our electric start, and whenever we do ever put lights on this bike, this is our DeWalt battery conversion. So I'm going to try to figure out exactly what we're going to do with that stuff. You know what I need to do is go ahead and open this up and just see what it all looks like on the backside. I don't know why this box is so big, but who knows, there might be something in here that I'm not seeing that we're gonna have to fit with the key. I don't know. Bang bang. Yeah, so the backside of that key mechanism is a lot larger than the front side. Yeah, I guess it's just a lot of wiring in here. Well, crap.
I hope it's worth it. This society is really trying me. Ain't no way to seek a hide to be far from anxiety. I need my space, I need my privacy. I need some silence, please. You're all too loud, you don't speak quietly. Opinions violently thrown across every surface. It makes me nervous. It's the world.
Alright, man, it is the home stretch. Now I think that we'll be able to assemble this thing. And actually not have to take it back apart. Well, I mean until we have to take it all apart to paint it. But we got the gas tank mounting complete. So that's all ready to go back on. We have the battery mounting complete. I really like how this turned out because there's plenty enough room right here for basically any size battery I want to put on here. And then the converter being in the front where the wind will hit it to be able to run across these fins to be able to keep it cool. I don't know how hot that thing gets, but I'd assume that they have the fins on it for a reason. I got the ignition box mounted up here on top of the engine. That's the best place I was really able to find to put it. The inside of this, the back side of that switch, and then the circuit protector and everything on the inside of there is so large. It would have been awkward trying to put it up here, which was my original idea, was to weld a plate, put the key here. I just thought that'd be cooler than just having it down here on the engine, but it is what it is, man. This is gonna work out a lot better. This box actually is waterproof, where the back side of that switch had a bunch of exposed soldering points and stuff, in which I just didn't want to be like exposed to the elements. Another thing is right here, I'm not gonna have to do any wire extending. This will actually reach and just reconnect the same way it was whenever it came out the box, you know what I mean? So I won't have to extend any wires. I'm gonna use some loom whenever we take this thing all apart and we reassemble it after paint and everything. I'm gonna use loom and make all this stuff look really nice. All this over here, get everything all nice and tucked. But like I said, this is just mock-up. We're gonna get the first start and be able to ride this thing and then tear it all apart after we know everything's gonna work. Oh, another thing is the carburetor, in which I installed and then had to remove. It came with these hose clamps, and while I was at the store, I found some T-clamps, buddy, which should hopefully work. I think that these are going to be just the right size. I want to swap those hose clamps out for these T-clamps so I don't have to worry about my carburetor falling off, you know what I'm saying? Those are going to be a sick ass upgrade. I am so stoked that I found those. But anyhow, get the carburetor back on. I gotta get the rear brake back on, the forks, handlebars, get the gas tank on, and I need to do a bunch of wiring, figuring out exactly how to do that. Zip tie a bunch of things up so that, you know, we can get a first start without ripping anything off. Oh, another thing, I'm gonna have to trim this cover. Realistically, I would rather not have the cover. Just go ahead and remove. go ahead and remove this. We have electric start. I really don't need the recoil start, but you know, if the battery ever dies while I'm away from the house, it would be nice to have this on here. But eventually, whenever I do get the billet flywheel, I have to get the high dollar billet flywheel for this. I can't just get a cheap Amazon one because it is electric start, and I can't find the cheap ones with the ring gear for the starter. The only one that I can find is the $250 billet one. So, you know, we'll get there eventually. But in order to put this cover back on, I am definitely going to have to cut it. Because if you see, it mounts and it spans out past where our frame is sitting now. So I'm going to have to trim this in some kind of way to get that back on. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and power through all this. I'll pick the camera up whenever I've made some progress, guys. All right, here we go, man. I'm going to put a little bit of fuel inside of this thing. I'm hoping that it's going to flow to the carburetor. I'm also hoping that this thing doesn't leak. All right, first start. So I tried cranking it off of the DeWalt battery, and the electric start does not want to turn the starter with the DeWalt battery. So I have a car battery hooked up. I'm gonna have to figure that out. So we're gonna have to do something other than the DeWalt. But there you go. The idle's a little high, buddy.
I couldn't even fucking think fast enough.
Cheese and rice. Alright, so it wasn't the idle or anything. It's just the cable that's for the throttle is I'm guessing it's a little bit short because I have all the adjustment that I have completely in. Nothing is adjusted out. And it was holding the carburetor open ever so slightly. So I need to find some more. Like I need to take, honestly, I think there's a jam nut. I'm gonna have to take this cable completely apart and probably take that jam nut out from in between there. That'll give me a little bit, if I even can, because that's probably what's holding that all together. I don't know, I gotta, oh, I think you can actually trim some of this plastic off, huh? Yeah, I think I can actually pop that off and trim a little bit of this to give me a little bit more cable. That's what I'm gonna have to do. Genuinely don't want to just like get into it because I know I need to nut and bolt check this thing, but just slowly getting into it and then just giving it a little like I've never felt a pull on a mini bike like that before. Oh my god, like it's crazy. What was that? on the bike the first time and my GoPro wasn't recording. So then the clip that you see is whenever I went out the second time. But the first time I went out, I actually topped out at 57 miles per hour, bro. And that's not even trying. This thing is ridiculously fast. And it's nuts to me that this is a 100% stock engine. Like, of course, it's got bolt-ons. We did a carburetor and an exhaust. But dude, tearing this thing apart and completely removing the governor and doing an aluminum flywheel is going to be absolutely huge on this thing. Let alone the fact that they make higher compression pistons and rods. Like, you can do the entire internals on this. Dude, they have valves and valve springs and everything that you can do on these little engines. If you didn't already know that. I know a lot of my followers don't really care for the mini bike stuff. But I will say, dude, maybe it just hasn't caught up to you. Because it seems like mini bikes are becoming pretty damn popular in my neck of the woods. Literally ever since Braven got that first doodle bug, man. Like, mini bikes have been blowing up. Now guys, I'm gonna go ahead and end this here. This was my first time building a bike completely from scratch myself, from just a frame, you know, and then having to make an engine fit and all that. The 212 on the Oryx Earth that we did previously, I mean, that is kind of a straightforward swap that everybody has done. I have literally never seen a 420cc on this frame before. People put them on other bikes. It would have been a lot easier to put it on my Coleman over there. But that Coleman's a giant bike, bro. Having this 420 on this little lightweight frame is just absolutely ridiculous. But there is going to be a lot more on this bike to come. So I want to obviously figure out the battery situation. I need to get probably a motorcycle battery for this thing. So that it's actually able to crank the starter. I'm surprised that the DeWalt setup wouldn't work, but it is what it is. If you guys have a electric start on your bike with a battery setup, throw it in the comments down below what it is you recommend or what it is that you are using. But yeah, man, I want to you know, iron out some little issues like the battery, and then from there we got to clean up all the wiring. We are also going to tear this thing all the way down and paint it and make it look good too. So anyhow, I will have a link in the description down below to everything that I used on this bike, including, of course, our FRP roller, dude. If you want to build a bike like this yourselves, I most certainly recommend ordering yourself the FRP roller. What's really nice about it is it comes as just a frame. It's very affordable. You don't have to buy an entire bike that has an engine that you have to take off and all that. So you save some money if you're planning on putting a bigger engine anyhow. And you're not buying somebody's used, hacked up stuff off a marketplace. You know, it's literally a 0 mile, 100% brand new frame. And it already comes with basically everything that you need. You got a hydraulic brake. You got a twist throttle, even though I upgraded mine because this is, dude, you cannot beat this throttle. It's got hydraulic brake, twist throttle. Comes with a motor plate if you're wanting to do a 212 or 224 Ghost engine, any of the Predator lineups basically. But if you want to do a 420, buddy, you're gonna have to do some cutting and welding. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Later. Yeah. Out of gas again.